Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today we are talking about Saltburn. If you have been living under a rock, Saltburn is a new movie with Jacob Elordi and an amazing star cast of other people. I have to Google the the actual main character's name because it escapes me at this moment. Apologies. Barry Conahan. He's fantastic. Rosamund Pike is amazing. Literally everyone in this movie is sort of perfectly cast for this, but it is the newest sort of gay thing in gay culture and that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to do a little video sort of talking about it, talking about some of the stereotypes, some of the assumptions, and all kinds of stuff in between. So here it is, everything Saltburn. First of all, do not watch this on a plane with your dad sitting next to you. This movie has some very interesting scenes in it, and there is no need to watch this in any kind of public setting. If you know what I mean. There are things that should not be shown in public, and Saltburn is one of them. Basically, the plot of the movie is quite simple. This average kind of plain Jane student attends Cambridge or Oxford for the first time, and he is not fitting in at all. And then he becomes friends with Jacob Elordi's character, who is rich, aristocratic, and very popular. He's also Jacob Elordi, so he's like 6'4" and quite a handsome person. So our main character sort of falls deeply in love with, his name is Felix, and the main character's name is Oliver. So Oliver falls madly in love with Felix and sort of begins to try and fit into that aristocratic world. And he's concocted, this is like major spoilers, but I want to be able to talk about the film in its full impact and everything. So Oliver, the main character, uses deceit and lies to make his life seem more tragic. And so Felix, the aristocratic demigod, whatever you want to call him, sort of takes pity on him and becomes a friend of his, and then finally invites him to Saltburn, his family's ancestral home, which is a giant mansion, castle, whatever you want to call it, in England. It's a black comedy, psychological thriller, whatever you want to call it, but about halfway through the movie, you start to realize that Oliver is a very manipulative, dark character, and he sort of starts to weed his way into Felix's family, starts to manipulate Felix's parents, his sister, his cousin, and in the end, every character ends up in a grim fate, a horrible demise, whatever you want to call it. And at the very end, Oliver becomes the owner of Saltburn. He basically figures out a way in which he becomes, he consumes everybody and basically becomes the lord of the house, whatever you want to call it. There are some interesting aspects to talk about when you consider gay culture and that kind of stuff. So it's never explicitly stated whether Oliver is gay explicitly or whether he is like pansexual, bisexual, whatever. But he's clearly very in love with Felix at the beginning, but he ends up sleeping with many of the characters, whether they are male, female, or whatever they identify as. And I don't know, there's this like stereotype from a long time ago where the gay character is like the bad guy. This film takes heavily from The Talented Mr. Ripley, in which a gay character is sort of, quite dark and twisted and ends up, killing his lover or his obsession. So from that perspective, I can give it a pass because it's kind of paying homage to that element, but there's just this idea in the gay community of like a gay obsession or like a fixation. And typically these fixations in films and television have always had like a dark or a bad outcome. You know, it's not a happy ending for anybody involved. So I do have a bit of a hard time with it from that perspective. Obviously, Oliver's obsession with Felix is one-sided. Felix does not have the same feelings. He views Oliver as a friend, and that's it. And yeah, I don't know. It's just, it leaves you kind of having these mixed feelings. I think the reason this film has become so talked about in the gay community and so, and like it's like an instant part of culture, is probably just because Jacob Elordi is such an attractive and interesting character. He's obviously a very good actor, but he's captivated sort of everybody in the film, and he's only in it for like half of it. He's not in it for a very huge amount of time when you really think of the grand scheme of the movie. But yeah, his character is sort of all consuming, and you know, it's obviously a very fictitious character. I mean, he's this gorgeous, rich, aristocratic, tall, handsome character who's fun-loving and, you know, very intuitive. Like, he doesn't have any faults. Like, he's kind of a perfect character, in which case he's not a perfect character because he doesn't have any faults. But yeah, you're meant to sort of fall in love with him and be drawn into him, and then you see everything around him and his sort of weird family and the way Oliver sort of obsesses over him, and that kind of makes him more attractive, which is a strange kind of twist. But yeah, Saltburn has some of these very iconic scenes, and I say iconic, but I really mean shocking. There is the grave scene, which is very shocking. There's the vampire scene or the blood scene, whatever you want to call it. And there's the tub scene. And so there are these three very emotive and powerful scenes that sort of make you sit up and go, what did I just watch? And I think that's one of the reasons why Saltburn has become an instant part of our culture. And I say our culture in terms of like the gay community, in terms of like our general culture, because a lot of people have watched this movie and it has made a lot of ripples, basically. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about those scenes. I think when I was watching it, it was sort of like, okay, this is a bit much, you know, this is very hyperbolic, it's very hyperbole, very sort of like in your face, shock and awe. And those things don't really have a huge effect on me. If anything, I was much more drawn by like character relationships and how the dynamic between Oliver and Felix kind of changes throughout it, and Felix starts to realize that Oliver is a liar and a manipulator. But that was just my take. I don't think that's the popular opinion. Yeah, Saltburn raises some like interesting sort of dynamics. I think the mother, Elspeth, played by Rosamund Pike, who does an amazing job. Like if one person in this whole movie deserves credit, it is Rosamund Pike, because oh my gosh, she has so many iconic lines, and she is this like upper class, very proper, prim lady of high esteem, but she just has these really iconic lines that she's totally like not self-aware. Like, she doesn't really realize, like, you know, the extent of what's going on, but the stuff that she says is very relatable, realistic. It teaches you things about life. You know, she says at one point, you know, I never want to know anything, as if, you know, that's like a good thing, to be like oblivious. It really works for her character, and obviously it's her like fatal flaw because it ends up, you know, not going well for her. But there's some interesting dynamics between Felix has a cousin, I can't remember his name, but Farley. And Farley has an interesting interaction, or several interesting interactions with Oliver. Farley's like the only one in the family who kind of knows Oliver is like, you know, a parasite or like a bad influence or whatever. And so there's some interesting dialogue. The dialogue, honestly, is very interesting throughout the whole movie. There's some very interesting lines and repartee between characters that kind of make you think about life and philosophy and dating and social orders and hierarchy. And, you know, I think that's a lot of what... Sorry, I kicked you. That's a lot of what Saltburn is it's a dialogue on different philosophical ideas and principles. And so it's just in this very ornate dressing, you know, this beautiful home in this country estate. And but you can pull a lot out of it, especially from like a second watch when you know everything's happening. Like once you get over the three, you know, shocking scenes, you can actually kind of understand the dialogue and you see how it's going. And you realize that this movie is quite deep, and it's very deep. I mean, it is a psychological thriller, so it's meant to do that. But I recommend it to people. I don't like how it's become such a part of gay culture. I think it's really just Jacob Elordi's allure, but I don't think it's a good representation of gay culture or of gay and queer people. The two characters who are explicitly queer do not have good like they're not good role models. They don't have good character traits. They do some really shady stuff. It's like if you're looking for something with good representation, go somewhere else. Watch Heartstoppers or something like that. Because Saltburn ain't it. But if you enjoy those like psychological thrillers, those make you think kind of movies, and you like a bit of iconic, you know, cinematography, then it's definitely an interesting movie. And like I've been hyping and going on about Jacob Elordi just being like the center stage. Like he's a very good actor, okay? Like he's really good in this. I'm not saying he's a bad actor or, you know, he's just eye candy. He has some very iconic lines. He has some very big depth, but he's just not really able to like show off a whole lot in this movie, you know? And his character is not in the whole thing. And so that was a bit, you know, it's a bit of a shame, but everyone else makes the film so interesting and intriguing. So give it a watch. That's my thoughts. People were asking for my thoughts on Saltburn, so I wanted to just do it. And there you go. So if you watch it, let me know what you thought. If you have any questions on what I've said here, or if you disagree, or if you agree, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.